What's up, guys? It's John with National Sports Entertainment, and I want to go into my initial predictions for the NBA Finals. I have a few teams, of course, like I don't have it exactly narrowed down, but I'm going to go into why I think certain teams are not going to go to the finals or win the finals. So, first off, with the trades that have happened, going back to Phoenix, I feel like there's a healthy amount of teams we can eliminate. If you go back in history, and this is one thing that I'm very fairly confident of because they talk about it, it's a narrative they push, and again, historically, it's been mostly true. If you have a team that is really close to getting it done, and then they add a couple role players or they make a small adjustment, there's a very good chance that next year they get over the hurdle, and then they go ahead and they credit that player who got there for making the difference. I believe I could be wrong. I thought the Heat did it with Ray Allen. I didn't think they. I thought they got him after they lost, and then they won with him. I could be wrong, but it's happened a lot where just it's not a crazy signing. They had obviously Bosh, Wade, and LeBron lost to the Mavericks. I thought they added Allen after that. Now I could be wrong on that occasion, but it really does happen. It happens in that case where your PJ Tuckers, those guys go to a team. He went to the Bucks. They won a championship. He left. They didn't do so good. More so than you get a bunch of superstars and then they win. Obviously, the Heat come to mind, but and I guess the '08 Celtics. But there's really, it seems like they're trying to get rid of that. So looking down the list, we have what's an interesting trade because what are the odds after the trade Drew Holiday ends up on the Celtics? I find that interesting. But he did. And obviously the favorites, Dame and Giannis. I think that's no different than Beal and Durant. Well, Durant went last year, but going to the Suns, to me, it's just a complete red herring. We have the Sixers, and you could argue people might be sleeping on them, but I think it's going to be a complete rebuild season. They might do good, but I just don't. First year with a new coach, I think they're going to wind up making trades halfway through the season to get people excited, but I don't think they're going to do much. I think the Knicks are definitely going to flip them as far as standings. I think they're going to have a better record than them this year. Now, the Lakers on the West Side are a team that for 3 years, I haven't had a channel for 3 years, but I was still saying it. I genuinely did not believe LeBron would win a championship until Bronny debuted, which would be next year. Bronny would debut, and they win one together. It would be like Dominic and Rey Mysterio in wrestling. They love to copy wrestling so much. But I have to admit, there are two teams, and I'm going to go into them right now, that are making championship moves. One of them is the Lakers, because they're doing everything a championship team does. They're getting players to take low contracts. They kept their heart, their heart of the team. Your Reeves, Rui. They brought in guys like Christian Wood, who he's known as a great role player, can hit the three, extend the four, and they added another guy, Prince. So they added some defense, they added some depth, and I really do think LeBron's getting another one. People keep saying he won't because of Jordan. LeBron with half, and again, I actually believe Michael Jordan's not the greatest player of all time. I think it's Kareem. But if LeBron has one less ring in almost twice the amount of years played, even though he's been there so many times, people ignore that. He's not going to get a Jordan comparison. The mainstream media has come out, like your Stephen A's and your Skips and your all the guys, Chris Broussard on First Things First. They've all come out and said he can win 2, 3 more championships. He's not going to change. So if they're saying that, then they're saying he could theoretically have 7, maybe 8 or something. God forbid if he were to, God willing, let him get to 8. But they're saying it wouldn't matter. But they're already saying if Steph got another one, we have an argument. So you can see what they're doing, and it's basically just to make Michael Jordan God, like they always have. But that being said, LeBron's the prince. If they call him the king, but Jordan's the real king. So it would make LeBron the prince. Steph Curry is not going to finish with the exact same amount of championships as LeBron. That's the reason I know the Warriors will not be winning another one, and it's the reason I think LeBron will. So the question is it going to come down to this year or next year? Dallas is an interesting one because it's year 77. I know some people fight me on that, but just look back 2 years ago, the NBA was calling it year 75, and the bubble year they said didn't count, so this would make this the official 77th. But either way, we have in year 75 is when Steph won, and if this is year 77, it's obviously Luka's number. That's an interesting thing. They said he lost some weight. They've been very quiet about Kyrie, so I could see him doing something. But at the end of the day, especially getting rid of Christian Wood, I don't think that they are cementing the Mavericks as a championship team. Again, I think they're setting them up for when they're inevitably going to get a nice trade or balance out their roster better. So of the teams in the West, I look at the Mavericks, I look at the Clippers. I don't think it's going to be the Warriors. You look at maybe the Thunder, but I like the Lakers. I do. My early season prediction for the West is actually the Lakers. And again, it's because of the players that they added. I think the NBA wants to send the message that, hey, if you're this close, you add these role players instead of just signing superstars. And I think the fans appreciate it more too. It's going to work out. So and you get some redemption angles too, of course. If they wind up playing the Nuggets in the Western Conference, it'll be the third time in 4 years. They just ran that script with the Heat and Celtics. So there's a lot of revenge possibilities. They got AD. I wouldn't be surprised if they went and got Dwight Howard back. He's been very active. So either way, I like the Lakers in the West very early on. And for the East, I like the Celtics. I think what they did was genius. As far as the NBA, and because the teams themselves don't do these trades, they're obviously set up. Otherwise, why wouldn't the Suns and Blazers have just worked out a trade of their own, and both got much better deals? For example, the Blazers could have offered up Ant Simons because he has about the same contract as Ayton, and they could have threw in even Shadon Sharp, which would, be a pretty big prospect, and Nurk, and then they get Ayton. Instead, the Suns, I think they got Nas out of the whole thing. So, and I think they might have got Keon Johnson. So it really wasn't a good trade at all. Like I said, the Blazers could have kept Dame theoretically and got DeAndre Ayton. And with that kind of lineup, Dame, Scoot, Grant, Nas, Ayton, something like that, that'd be a pretty dangerous lineup. So obviously, the trades make no sense. We saw that with the Suns last year. But it did work out very conveniently where now the Celtics have Drew Holiday. And they just signed a perfect example of a guy who is going to be on championship teams. He was, let's be honest, he's an average player who gets treated like a superstar. And it's because he's a great defensive player. It's because he is a great role player. He knows what to do. But he was the third best player on the Bucks championship team. And towards the end, they started acting like Chris didn't exist, and he was the second best player. And I think it's because, again, of the fact that his style, the way he plays, things that you just can't really teach. So now you have the Celtics with Porzingis, where he's going to probably be a big fan favorite. They seem to love the big white guys there. And for the point guard to add Drew Holiday, if you look at it, again, from like a real or fake perspective, it's an upgrade from Marcus Smart because they're going to, the Marcus Smart's narrative is he's a liability. He shoots too many threes at bad times, stupid plays. He commits fouls for all these different things and, technicals. And Drew's known for being smart and still actually a better defender. So if you really look at it, the Celtics and Lakers are really making all the moves. The Lakers are holding on to their, I think, like their future dynasty. Not that they're going to be a dynasty, but their future squad that they hope to be a dynasty. And Reeves being, obviously, him and Davis, obviously. But Reeves is the young guy, so he's going to be the one. He's the one LeBron is fathering. And then they have, like, Pippen's son and all these different things. And then on the Celtics end, like I said, I think Porzingis, it's going to turn out to be a perfect fit. And when they re-signed Jaylen Brown, that's also a big deal because in most cases like this, you see the guy traded away. And then in the few cases when they hold on to a guy and they show, yeah, we got love, we want to pay you, a lot of times they'll win and they'll say, oh man, it happens in football more, but just a year ago they were going to get rid of him, or just a year ago he was looking like he was in trouble, whatever the case may be. And now they can do the same thing. Oh, a year ago, they're talking about Brown leaving. He was unhappy, and they stuck it out, and they grinded it away, did the right things, and they won. To me, you don't have Brown and Tatum here and not give them a ring, or at least a couple. Like, you're trying to push them as, again, the dynasty of the East. Again, I don't think we're going to have a ton of dynasties, but you have to think of the players that are getting pushed. Which ones make sense to get them some rings? You got Giannis a ring. You got Jokic a ring. I think, obviously, Embiid hasn't got one yet, but I think he's going to be like a one-ring guy. I don't see him doing anything crazy just because he doesn't. I don't think he has the marketability of Giannis or Luka, or even SGA, all these different guys. But Tatum, Brown, it just makes sense to me that, especially with the Milwaukee decoy, now, the people are going to be looking at the Celtics basically akin with the Heat probably, even though they're a better team. They're just going to look at Giannis and Dame and then the rest of the crew. So yeah, I like the Celtics and the Lakers. I know a lot of people were calling for that last year, and I think they did that on purpose with the championships. So that's why I had them both losing, because I thought it seems too obvious. And again, I had my theory that he wasn't going to win until his son got there. Of course, as things change like this, them both making championship moves, it's something to reconsider. And of course, they'd both be going for the 18th championship, which is interesting. And I genuinely believe that at the very least, we're going to see both of these teams in their conference finals, respectively. So it would be pretty darn obvious, but I wonder if we get Lakers, Nuggets, Bucks, Celtics in the Eastern and Western Conference finals. In the Western Conference, it could be a lot different because you have so many storylines. For example, Lakers, Nuggets is a good storyline, obviously, right off the bat. Lakers, Suns is a beautiful storyline with LeBron having gone against Kevin Durant so many times, and now you have just ridiculous super teams. You obviously have, if the Warriors were to get there, we really haven't seen Lakers Warriors in a bit. I don't know if because LeBron got to the Lakers, and I don't know how many times they met up in the conference championship. I don't think it was many though, so that would be interesting. There's a lot that would be interesting, and I had talked about the Warriors Suns for a while, and especially with Chris Paul going to the Warriors now, I think they'll definitely meet up in the playoffs. Warriors Suns, you have to have that happen before these guys retire. They've been flirting this rivalry forever, and they've yet to really pay it off. So I do have a feeling that we're going to get that in the playoffs. Maybe we get like Dallas versus the Clippers. Dallas Thunder would be a fun matchup, but I'll go into all the teams I think will make the playoffs. But yeah, Spurs. They're going to Wemby's winning Rookie of the Year. I went into this already. International appeal. They're trying to draw to other countries, and at the same time now, we have one of the top, as far as intangibles and just outright skill, international men we've ever seen. There's no way they're going to blow this. They gave him Popovich, so Wemby's going to go nuts. I wouldn't be surprised if they made the playoffs, maybe early elimination, but it would be one of those stories how they went from, worst to not first, but worst to pretty darn good in a matter of a year. So I expect the Spurs to have a good year, obviously. They're going to push Wemby really hard. And, yeah, Knicks, I think they'll do about the same. Hawks, they might get some slight improvement. Be interesting to see the Hornets without MJ. I'd wager to say they might have one of their best records ever, at least since MJ's been there, because it's just kind of a penance thing. But, yeah, I think Lakers, Celtics makes a lot of sense, and I think that's what we're going to get. Right now, that's my gut for the finals, with, again, Drew Holiday being a big focal point and Christian Wood being a big focal point on the other end. Just going into how, the Suns added all these stars. The Lakers, they added depth. The Bucks, they traded for the best in the game. The Celtics added two very good fits to it because they were already just this close. So, to me, it makes sense from almost any way you look at it. Who wins is the question. If we get Celtics, Lakers, I honestly think the Celtics would win. And it's only because I don't think they'd get Tatum and Brown back there again, do all this to have them lose. And as I said, I don't think LeBron's going to win before Bronny gets there. I think he's going to stay longer than people think. So I could see him losing. We haven't had back-to-back in a while with the same two teams. I'm not saying we're going to get that. But I could see him losing, and then maybe a year later, because he'll still be there when Bronny gets there, or a year after that, winning that year. So I have him actually getting there possibly 2 more times, but that's just my early prediction is Boston Lakers. Boston wins it. Again, it's also worth noting, and it's not something they do all the time, but we have had 2 winners back to back in the West. They usually try and change it up, so it doesn't mean it's a guarantee, but I think there's a good chance that they switch it over to the East and it'll be the Celtics when everyone thinks it's going to be the Bucks. So that's just my early predictions based off of what I've seen in the past and what these teams are doing. I think Suns are an auto fade. I think a lot of these teams are auto fades. Sixers just because they're rebuilding. Clippers just because, again, they'd be interesting, but they definitely could have pulled the trigger on that a while ago, so that's not happening now. Memphis auto fade. No way in Ja's first year after screwing up they give him anything. Miami auto fade. They are obviously going to run the same script with this team, and yeah, I guess Jimmy could get back there and win, which would be a ridiculous story. But that's kind of using my Jimmy G logic. I think, again, the reason that these guys have the same name, and they even call them both Jimmy G, is because they're going to have the same story. You know, they're going to bust their ass. Although Jimmy G sucks, his story is more. He has been, I mean, for years, he's been really close to a championship and just hasn't got it done. And it's been the same with Jimmy G here. So I think we're going to have pretty similar narratives. We might see the Heat get back to... They might do something crazy like knock off the Bucks again and it'll be them and the Celtics again. I doubt it. But they might get further than people think. But Celtics-Bucks seems like the lock. And people are probably going to have Celtics-Bucks, but they're not going to have the Celtics winning, in my opinion. Way more are going to have the Bucks. And then, yeah, on the other side, I think it would come down to Lakers-Nuggets. I do. I think they want people to show, hey, the Nuggets aren't a one-off. So you get them back to the championship. Lakers get their redemption. And it kind of lets everybody look pretty good. So, nothing crazy. Again, I always say that, but it really isn't. It's just my predictions. And I try and look at matchups, and I'm going to look at the Christmas schedule. When they show you who plays on Christmas, it's almost a dead giveaway of those teams are making the the finals, or at least deep, because they just know these are going to be the draws. So I'm sure the Christmas games are going to be like Celtics, Bucks, and Knicks, Heat, and Lakers, Warriors, Suns, Nuggets, all that stuff. Clippers, Kings, we'll say, but something like that. So that's going to be our Christmas game. I always find that interesting because they have the lines out, like preseason, like before the season starts, they have the Christmas game lines out, even though they have no idea how these teams are going to perform. And then the lines wind up basically staying the same, which means they basically know how they're going to have performed from now until Christmas. So it's all really interesting. I'll go into an opening week. Again, we did really good with basketball last year. Again, it's akin to college because we have a lot of plays we can make. We can pick our spots, and you can see a lot of these games. And basketball's a great one to just play at my spread metric. I've gone into my spread metric before. Hopefully I'm not cutting out. A lot of times when I shift to another screen, it cuts out. I'm trying to be more aware of that so it doesn't keep happening. But anyway, what I wanted to go into is if you look at Oregon has not lost a game against the spread. Vandy's 0-6. So the reason this is important is if you go back, and you can go back as long as you want. Any team that basically played a full schedule, you see them. A couple in the high 70s and two in the low 80s, mid 80s. On the other end, all in the teens, the mid-teens. We don't count a team that only played one game. So that's how I use it for college, and that's what we're going to be using. So teams that I immediately like are Vandy to cover, Oregon to get covered. And there is, I think, a game tomorrow that a team fits the metric. I think it's Mid-Tennessee State or something, hasn't gone over, or something like that. But I'll go into that. But I wanted to show you this because we use this for basketball and it works very well. But yeah, it's just something that we're able to. It's also a thing where if you have the public seeing that this team's 7-1 against the spread and this team's 0-7, who do you think they're going to take as a tiebreak? The team that sucks against the spread or the team that's really good against the spread? So I think that's another reason that theory works. There's a lot of times, now obviously with the pros, you kind of see what's going on. But there are so many times, especially with college and with sometimes when I just don't have time to watch the games, I just pick spreads. So I just look at, oh wow, this team hasn't won yet against the spread. Now obviously with 82 games, you can't do it immediately. But you get about a week or two in and you can start taking and fading spreads. We did really well with the Lakers last year doing that because they started off so bad against the spread. And then we started just hammering them, and then they started making it up and hitting the spread. The only team that burnt us last year is the Mavs. Luka had so many ridiculous no covers where at the end he's missing free throws, blows the spread, and he did it so many darn times. Of course that's going to happen, but even with them burning us and, by burning us, we finished negative units with that specific team. Nothing crazy though. But it's easily mitigated by Lakers, who we killed it with. We did really well with picking overs on Miami because they had gone under so much, and Miami to cover the spread. They were sitting in like the 30%. We started hammering them to hit the spread. They hit like 20 of the last 22 spreads going into the playoffs. And that's another thing I think you'll notice. Not only do they have teams that will somehow always, in basketball, if you look at the NBA, it falls between 40 and 60%. Not only will they always wind up covering the spread at that rate, but even if they start off terrible, out of nowhere they'll just go on a ridiculous run and it'll perfectly even out. For example, the Reds were sitting around 67% against the spread up until a few weeks left of the season. And then they just went on this ridiculous non-cover streak and finished at like 59%. It's like they set it up on purpose where these teams all fall within the same metrics. So it's a very important metric to use. But yeah, Lakers Celtics is my pick. I think we're going to get that. Actually, I think this might be a prelude. I genuinely think this is going to be our Eastern Conference quarterfinals or Western Conference quarterfinals. It's the Eastern Conference semis. Western Conference semis. Eventually, I'll get it right. I think this might be our Western Conference semis. Phoenix Warriors, amazing grudge match. Lakers Nuggets, amazing grudge match. So that could be the WCF. I do think that we have a good chance of getting that, and then it'll be the Lakers and, in my opinion, it'd probably be Lakers Suns if Lakers play Denver in the semis. And I think just because of the appeal of Phoenix playing Golden State, we might certainly get that. But yeah, I just wanted to go into that. I wanted to go into the system, and there's a couple nice college picks this week. Vandy, we had him as like a leg 2 last week. You bet your Bippy I'll be doing a leg 3 on them this week because I genuinely believe they're not starting 0-6 against the spread. Or 0-7. I think they're already 0-6. So, yeah, I think we're going to do really well. And we had a rough week, but like I said, that's why I made this system. So even during rough weeks, we can do well. I've also moved the rig log. It's in my notes. I moved it to Discord if my phone doesn't cut out. And it's right here. Now, hopefully it makes a difference, but I put this in here just because it's more aesthetically pleasing. The contrast makes it where you can see the sequences better than my notepad. And like I said, a lot of times when I talk in the notepad, it gets jargled. So I just posted I haven't updated like today and yesterday. I updated yesterday. I haven't updated today yet. So we have a baseball game that hit. We had a baseball game that missed. So 50-50. Both leg ones, so nothing crazy. But, everyone's posted in here now. So instead of going through the notepad where a lot of times I cut out anyway, but it seems to be worse in the notepad, we'll be able to just go through the picks in here. So I thought that would be a cool way to do it. And anyone that's in the Discord can follow along a lot easier now. So as you can see, we're pretty deep in. We've done a lot of plays. Sequence 62 and 63 were in my last video. We had the Jays winning, which did not happen, but we had the Rays going under, which did happen. So 1 of 2, nothing crazy. I think we're going to close out the Jays because while they might lose, I don't think they're getting swept in the series. That'd be 2 years in a row. I just don't think it's going to happen. So, as always, take care and happy earnings.